course. Oh, wow, this is familiar and elusive. I was kind of hoping this would turn up. This is so cool. Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make. I thought it was like a Saturday morning cartoon or something, not a big deal. I read my dialogue. They showed me a maquette of this little character, Lord Farquaad, and they showed me a lot of storyboards, animated storyboards. And I thought, well, this looks like fun. And these writers were all there, and they sort of pitched what was funny about this character. The curious thing was, that was like 4 years before we ever saw Shrek. And they would bring me back in once every 8 months or so to record some new material. And it was like, oh, well, I gotta do this Shrek thing again? What is this? Chris Farley was the original Shrek, and he passed away. They had to bring in Mike Myers. Mike Myers recorded the whole thing. Then they decided he should use his Scottish accent from his great SNL sketches. So there were all sorts of things that prolonged the process. Okay, next. Oh, wow, this is familiar and elusive. If I were you, I'd give up vigilanteism. You're not very good at it. I think that's Dexter. Yes, that's so I have to do it as the Trinity Killer. If I were you, I'd give up vigilanteism. You're not very good at it. If I were you, I'd give up vigilanteism. You're not very good at it. The writers had created this character very much based on various very plain and ordinary and innocuous men who had this horrifying other side to them. TV Guide wrote a review of Dexter. It was very complimentary to me, but it did call me a bland blob of a man. I chose to take that as a compliment. Oh, that was what I was after. So you ask, how did I prepare? I was just as boring as I could be. I just went back to do a day. They're rebooting the entire Michael C. Hall version of Dexter. And it turns out he didn't die after all. And I come back sort of as a phantom as he gradually comes to life on a hospital bed. I was a terrible bully. I was a terrible bully. No memory at all. I was a terrible bully. That's Winston Churchill in The Crown. Thank you for the hint. I was a terrible bully. All of the actors had been changed. Elizabeth and Anne and Charles and Philip and Mountain. Everybody was changed except me. And I was an afterthought at that. The first episode was entirely built around Churchill's funeral. And late in their 8-month-long season, they had a shoot. They had a look at the episode, the first episode, and realized the funeral doesn't quite work unless we get another glimpse of Churchill. And it was just too important that it be the same one that we remembered from 1 and 2. So I get people getting a little tired of my British accent. I have a lot of catching up to do. I don't know the Harry Potter canon by heart, as 98% of the entire world's population seems to. It was a huge decision because it involves the next several years of my life, and I'm not young. I mean, this is the last big role I'll probably play. I was a huge admirer of Michael Gambon. I never met him, but I always kind of idolized him. And Michael Gambon and I happen to have the same birthday. So I thought that was a kind of wizard-like touch. This is really such a memory lane. I can't believe it. Oh, of course. I was kind of hoping this would turn up. Oh, my God! I'm gorgeous! Which is pretty much how I played the entire role of High Commander Dick Solomon in Third Rock from the Sun. Oh, my God! I'm gorgeous! It was when the aliens were dealing with this whole thing about aging and the obsession with looking young. Bonnie and Terry Turner were very good friends of mine on the basis of two of the 3 episodes I hosted on Saturday Night Live. I became friends with Bonnie and Terry. And as Bonnie described it, they needed someone who was a cross between Errol Flynn and Bugs Bunny. And on the basis of working with me on SNL, they thought it was me or nobody. If I hadn't done it, they wouldn't have done it. So it was very much created for my own kind of bag of tricks, I guess you say, and my sort of lunatic willingness to do anything. This is really fun. Popcorn at a ball game is unnatural. I want a hot dog. I think that's Interstellar. Am I right? Yes. Popcorn at a ball game is unnatural. I want a hot dog. We go see the New York Yankees play in what looks like a community recreation center ball field because, there's only 10% of the world's population left, and yet we're trying to keep alive the way things used to be. And of course, I was the old man. I was the granddad of Timothée Chalamet, I might add. I consider it Chris Nolan's masterpiece, but he's come up with a few masterpieces. But a great time, and I got to work with Timothée and watch him turn into a superstar, a much, much, much bigger deal than I am. Oh, of course, I thought I might see this. Kill a few people, they call you a murderer. Kill 1 million, and you're a conqueror. Go figure. That was Eric Quaylen was his name. It took me a while to remember the name in Cliffhanger.
Kill a few people, they call you a murderer. Kill 1 million, and you're a conqueror. Go figure.
My corniest villain, but it's survived the test of time. And with Sly Stallone, the big climax is a huge fight to the death with Sylvester Stallone on the belly of an upended helicopter, sort of harnessed to a mountain rock face 30,000 feet above sea level. And at the end, after pummeling each other, this huge battle royal, the helicopter comes loose and falls all the way down and crashes. The best death I've ever had. Doing a big fight scene with Sly Stallone, that's top of the food chain. A writer? What do you have to write about? You're not oppressed? You're not gay? A writer? What do you have to write about? You're not oppressed? You're not gay? It must be a movie about a writer. Is it World According to Garp? You're gonna have to tell me. I don't know what this is. How great! Oh, how great! I should have known. This is a line written by the great Mike White. And just on the basis of that, I should have known.
A writer? What do you have to write about? You're not oppressed, you're not gay?
Their original idea for this was John Goodman. I think they asked him to play it, and he either turned it down or was not available. And they went to me. And I always felt he would have been so much better in the role. But I had a great, great time. And nowadays, White Lotus days, I can say, oh yes, I've worked with Mike White. We've got some big guns and some big, big guns, but I'm afraid we're all out of big, big ammo. I can't even take a stab at this. Oh my God, this would be from Harry and the Hendersons. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we've got some big guns and some big, big guns, but I'm afraid we're all out of big, big ammo.
There was a wonderful actor named Kevin Peter Hall who died too young. Just a lovely man. He had the good and bad fortune to be 7'3", I think. And he had on an extraordinary Bigfoot head that had an animatronic face. These guys would operate little game toggle devices to control all the tiny muscles in Harry's face. That was it. You know, it was very realistic. It was not CGI at all. It was... I'm standing up here before you today with a very troubled heart. I think that has to be Reverend Shawmore in Footloose. Am I right?
I'm standing up here before you today with a very troubled heart.
My favorite story about Footloose, when I was doing Third Rock from the Sun, we had this dumb episode. They were all dumb and wonderful, where we were in a circus sideshow. Somehow we had ended up an act in a freak show, and there was a young actor, tall, gorgeous, hunky guy who played the circus strongman, and it was a 2-day part. He took me aside at one point and said, "I just want to tell you, I come from a little town in Louisiana, and my daddy was the Baptist minister in that town. Footloose came to town. I saw Footloose, and you were my daddy. We were not allowed to dance. We weren't allowed to listen to that music. And I took my daddy to that movie the next night without telling him anything. By this time, literally, tears were running down his cheeks. He said, because of your performance, I was the first of 6 children who got to go to his high school prom." And I listened to that like, oh my God, this was my teeny bopper movie. I never really gave it the respect it deserved until I heard that story. It just shows you never know what you're throwing out there. This is so much fun. Oh, good. You're a very rude young woman. I know Douglas from the Rotary, and I can't believe he'd want you treating customers so badly. Now, I can also quote the next 2 lines, and then you'll recognize this too. She responds, "Oh, I don't think I was rude." And then my answer to her is one of the most famous lines I ever spoke. "Then you must be from New York." That was terms of endearment.
You're a very rude young woman. I know Douglas from the Rotary, and I can't believe he'd want you treating customers so badly.
I did this concurrently with Footloose. Herb Ross had us for 2 weeks to rehearse before Footloose started shooting. And I got a call on a Saturday morning from my agent saying, they want you to replace an actor in terms of endearment. There had been another actor playing the role of Sam Burns, and he'd played 2 scenes, and they just decided, this is not right. They asked Herb if he would spring me loose for a week to come and shoot the entire role of Sam Burns. And Herb said no, that he couldn't do without me for that week. And I had read the script. I thought, oh my God, I gotta be in this movie. It's gonna be so great. Arguably, I'd rather do this than Footloose. Fortunately, both films were produced by Paramount. And Barry Diller and Jeffrey Katzenberg were in charge of Terms of Endearment and Footloose. They were both Paramount films. And they said to Herb, you're gonna spring him loose, and he's gonna be in Terms of Endearment. Otherwise, I never would have been in like the best movie I've ever been in, with an Oscar nomination for 5 days of work. Aha, your own ambition has not gone unnoticed. It might be seen as a tactic to blacken the name of a rival. That's Cardinal Tremblay in Conclave.
Your own ambition has not gone unnoticed. This might be seen as a tactic to blacken the name of a rival.
This was from my favorite scene with Ralph Fiennes, who was one of the great scene partners I've ever had. You know, it's been an amazing 2 years, because in this 2 years I worked with Ralph and Olivia Colman and Jeffrey Rush and Jeff Bridges. I mean, just wonderful, big star scene partners. They made me look real good. That's all you men understand is violence. I think that must be Roberta Muldoon in World According to Garp.
That's all you men understand is violence.
Roberta was a funny-looking character, funny-looking, and every line she said was ironic. But then there's a scene where Garp goes jogging with Roberta, and at a certain point she gets winded and breathes heavily and bursts into tears. And Garp asks her what's wrong, and she talks about how sad she is that she can't have children. Suddenly it became a serious character as well as a funny one, which was the beauty of that role, both in the novel and in the film. That's the nature of this line. That's Stephen Tessich's very particular ironic humor, which has such great subtlety and complexity. That's all you men understand. It's violence. That's a man himself who lived in a very violent profession, professional football, until he chose to become a woman. Funny and heartbreaking at the same time. Oh, we're having more fun than we've had in donkey's years. Oh gosh, this is fairly recent. What is this? It would have to be, is it The Rule of Jenny Penn?
We're having more fun than we've had in donkey's years, ain't that right, Jenny?
I can't remember the context. I just saw it last week. We're having more fun than we've had in donkey's years. If you had somehow been able to phonetically write it in a New Zealand accent, I would have gotten it in no time. Okay, finale. Okay. Of course, there's a man on the wing of this plane. That, of course, is John Valentine in Twilight Zone, the movie, directed by George Miller, When I Have Seen a Monster on the Wing of the Plane, out the plane window.
There's a man on the wing of this plane!
That would be on my list of the, well, I guess, the 5 or 6 career-defining lines I ever spoke.